Hello and welcome to the second episode of Wild Exposures. I'm Rajiv, and in this episode, I like to cover the area of cropping images. I will be using Adobe Photoshop Lightroom and just show you few options how you can crop wildlife images. I got a few raw images. Uh, for about 25 images for this task, and I just hope to show you some of the techniques and ways in which you can crop the images to get the most out of your picture. So to start off, let me open Adobe Lightroom. So as mentioned in the episode 1, let's import the raw images first. Okay. Okay, so we got all the images in this folder, which we will crop. I do not want to do all the post processing all at once, and just like to go through step by step so that you can take it in slowly and gradually understand some of the basics when it comes to photography, wildlife photography in particular, and also the post processing your images to finally use them for public display. So the files are being imported, and let's get to work once it's done. By the way, while this is being imported, if anyone would like to download this software, it's available for purchase in adobe.com. You can go online, maybe download a trial version first. They offer a 30-day free trial and see how it works for you before making the purchase. But basics of cropping can also be done in any other software. This is just a tool, and whatever I uh, go through in this with regards to cropping can be applied even to any other software which you're using. It can be Photoshop, it can be digital post processing by Canon, anything. So this is just going through some of the principles of cropping, and just to go through first. Okay, why would you want to crop an image? So start off, most one reason is we may not have the desired focal length to get the image right up close as we desire. So in that case, we need to crop the image to bring it a bit closer in the frame. Secondly, sometimes, as you know, wildlife is something that is quite unpredictable, and animals can be always on the move, and you cannot perfectly frame your photograph while in the field. So what I usually do is I try to frame it as much as possible using the focus points, but if the animal is on the move, you just use the center point as the focus and zoom back slightly and take the shot where you leave enough room to do some cropping when you're back at home. Uh, Another reason for cropping is to make it more aesthetic. Sometimes it's not very practical to do it while in the field and while you're on the move. So you can do that. I leave a bit of background and space. I do not do a lot of full frame portraits. I do once in a while, but I like to have the habitat of the animal as well, because I think that brings a bit of character to where the animal lives, where its habitat is, where it's found, and also helps with creating a story. We have to remember image is always a story, and we are the ones who are responsible to make it come alive. Okay, so let's start. So now all the photographs have been imported. So let's just start with this. So this is a mixed bag of photographs taken during my last few trips. Because I don't have the whole database with me right now because my hard disk is back at office, and due to the curfew and lockdown I'm unable to retrieve it, but we'll make do with what we have. So this is a photograph of a leopard taken in the Masai Mara in Kenya. This was taken a few weeks ago, just before the lockdown, and we waited several hours observing the leopard on the tree. The leopard had a kill, and she basically was found up there all night, and we were hoping that it would come down to go and have go to the Talik River, which was nearby, to drink water. And it was a long wait, but I managed to position the jeep in the right place so that the light would fall perfectly on the tree, and the angle would be perfect for a photograph. So, saying all this, let's go to crop. So we go to develop. Okay. So as the leopard is moving down, you have to take a portrait crop. So what I usually do, I would cut the shadow areas behind the tail and focus more on the leopard. So it's a bit tricky because you want to show most of the tree. So I think best would be to keep it like this. If you like, you can straighten it out, but I would like to leave this angle, and done. So the rest of the adjustments I would not go through at the moment. I'll just go through basics of cropping. So as the leopard move down, we can see like grass is beautifully blurred out in the background, and as we were on the move, I did not try to do the framing of the shot of the subject while we are on the move, so I just framed it to the center, and thought I'll come back home and do the cropping. So there are a few things we can do. One, definitely we have to eliminate the sky in the background, which is very distracting. So just simply crop that. I usually like shots which are quite long and rectangular. I would keep the animal using the rule of thirds on this corner, because as you see, the animal is moving towards the right, and because of that you need to leave a bit of space. I would show like the reason now. For example, this animal, this leopard, you can see the body lengthwise, so therefore you can do a portrait type of not portrait, a landscape oriented crop. But if the animal is facing forward, I will show some images later where we would crop it in a different way. So I think this would be more suitable. See the difference. As long as the image is relatively sharp, this is not, unfortunately, but still, this is just for example. There were several images in this sequence, and while you're on the move, focus does not necessarily fall on the animal, but the overall understanding of the crop is the reason why I selected this image. As this leopard is moving to the right, again, a bit like that. Same thing, so I'm not going to. So as mentioned, if you're using Lightroom, the advantage is you're going to have all the photographs lined up here as a workflow, and you can just keep keep doing this. So okay, for this photograph, as you can see, there's a bit of shadow on the left, so I'm not going to use the full frame photograph, what I would do maybe is just use this as a profile of the Tusker. This was taken in Kabini. Yeah, just to show the profile of the tusks. The other stuff, editing and everything, I will go through in the next episodes, but I just want to go through the crops. So it's the rule of thirds. As you can see, the full frame photograph with a lot of background. So you bring this animal to the corner and you do the crop. So if a subject is facing you, front facing, or if the subject area is small like this, it's always better to use a portrait type crop. So what I usually do is I like to leave a bit of background. So that's just the way I like to frame my photographs, and that's my style. So I would do it like this, but you can also have a tighter crop if you like. Focus only on the animal. Okay. What you usually do is you have the subject. Okay, just going back to wider shot. If you're doing a portrait, it's important to make sure that the subject is in the bottom half of the frame. Do not put a frame like this. Usually you don't center it. What I would advise is to use it like this, or if you're doing a tighter crop, even then keep the animal in the bottom of the frame, right? Like that. Little bit of space is fine, but not too much. Okay, as you see. Oh, going back to more background. Okay, just to give you an idea that it doesn't, if you do it like this, it just doesn't seem right. So that's why I would advise you not to keep a lot of space here. Okay, so moving on, this is some Indian wild dogs taken in Kabini. So I would frame it because as you can see, the dog is looking this way. So you leave the space here. That's just rough guideline what I use. Now here, the animal is looking straight at you, but you get a bit of the body as well. So it's a bit tricky. You cannot. I wouldn't. You can do it in different ways. You can either do it like this, where you have the animal seated and you leave a bit of space, or as an option, you can get a closer crop because, as you can see, it's looking straight at you, and have the dog in the center, or a little bit like that. Right, so this is one option, and this would be option number 2. So it's entirely up to you. There's nothing hard fast about it, but it depends on what your mood is and what your style is. Each person has his own style. Personally, I would prefer it like this, but if you want to vary your shots, then maybe you can go for a tighter crop. So something like that. But generally, the other way it looks more interesting. I don't know. It's just how I feel. Here it's okay. You can do several options. You can completely cut off this dog. Have only this dog. Cut the bottom off, and there you go. You can have it like this, or you can have with both of them, but as they are walking forward, keep a bit of space like that, straighten it out like that, and here you go. So there's no hard fast rule of way to crop a certain image. There are multiple options, and I'm just showing you several ways you can do that. In some images, there's only one way which is most ideal. For example, in this tree is distracting and this tree is distracting. Ideally, what you can do, if you can, crop both of them, if not cutting off the tiger. Have it like this, because as if you just have a look, if you have this tree, it's going to distract. See how bright this is. So it's going to be very distracting. This is going to be even worse. Ideally, you crop this entirely and use it, or you don't use it at all. Even in this case, I would definitely take out the tree. So make sure you are aware of the edges so that you omit the tree when you're doing the crop. So as the tiger is looking towards the left, you crop, leaving space on the left. Okay, here this is a shot where the rhino is looking straight at you. So as mentioned earlier, I would ideally do a more portrait type of crop. So I would cut off the bottom to make it more balanced, and I would straighten it out because it's taken in such an angle. Okay, so this is how I would crop it. So if you, as mentioned, if you do it at the center, or you can do like this, you can omit the top part and leave a bit at the bottom. So either way, you do not center the animal, but rather you keep it either on the top half or the bottom half and leave some space depending on the type of image. For example, if there was water and there's a reflection of the rhino, you cut the top half and you leave the bottom like that. Okay, then just moving on. So as the animal is running, it's quite simple. Just copy it like that. So sometimes the animal gets so close to your frame that you're not able to fully frame the whole animal in the picture, and certain parts would be cut off, like the, I guess in this case, the rhino's toes. So what I would do is maybe just use it because it's so close. They are definitely bound to have more detail in the picture. So I might just use it as a portrait and just take only the face. So in this case, as you can see, the rhino is walking towards me. I have two options, or three options I can do. Option number one is as it's facing me, I do a portrait type of crop, but just try to center it a bit, adjust it, right? Now, the effect of a rhino walking towards me is best obtained if you show some space here at the bottom. So you crop the top part a little bit and leave the rhino in the top half and leave some space here. This is how I would frame it. As you can see, there's some space and it looks like rhinos walking towards you. The image is pretty sharp, right? Or you can, if you like the background, if you like the background, you can crop it like this. But I think this is much more dramatic. What do you say? As you can see, it almost looks like I'm at eye level with this rhino. Or the third option would be a wider shot. It's not ideal, but I guess it can work at some time like this. It's nice as well, like in a certain way it has its effect because you get so much of the background and the foliage and the greenery. It's quite pleasing to the eye. So this is another option you can go with. Or this. So there are four options you can go with in this frame. So it's up to you, entirely up to you, how you would frame it. So that is up to each person's style and preference. So in this case, so this is the way I was able to frame it because my lens is a Canon 200 to 400, and I think I was at 400 millimeters focal length at that time. But I wanted to focus on the two young elephant calves, and how would I frame? So main focus has to be on the elephant calves. So what I would do is try and crop it in a way, but I like to get the tusks of the mother as well. So, but and also want to get back leg of the other elephant as well. Yeah, this is the way I would crop it, and just makes it look, compared to what it was, and see it now. Moving on to some birds. So birds are quite tricky because even as especially flamingos, as you can see, they're tall animals, they're tall birds, and in during certain angles, a landscape shot is better. At certain angles, a portrait is better, a portrait crop. And in this case, as there's some reflection in the water, it's always nice to get that as well. So what I would do in this case is maybe try to frame it in a way it's not exactly a rectangle but more like a square, but you know have the flamingos on the top half and crop it like this, so brings out some effect of the birds. Well, of course you can also cut off one of the birds and have it like this, but I would definitely recommend leaving the reflections at the bottom. Ideally it should have been even more wider the framed so that I can get the whole reflection on the water, but you have to make do with what you have. So I think I'd go with this, and so these are some greater flamingos taken in Amboseli in Kenya, and these are some lesser flamingos. It was a surprise to us to see them. So there's some distraction in the background, but generally it's a nice light, and you get to see the two greater flamingos at the back as well. So what I would do is frame it like this. Try to take out the green because the green in the background might be a bit distracting. So you can either do that or it's a bit tricky. Okay, like this. I'll leave a bit of space because they're moving towards that area. As you can see, this you leave the areas of reflection as well. Okay, so this is also in the Masai Mara, taken a few weeks ago. What I would do for this grinning cheetah would be take out the top part because it's you can do this. You can either frame it in this way, like this. Yeah, you can do it like this, where you have some of the grass in the forefront, which is blurred out, and it's focusing on the cheetah, but it looks like you're taking it at eye level when you do that, as you can see. So you keep the cheetah in the top half, or You do this, and you can also have a tighter crop if you like, but I like to get more of the background. You can do this if you like, but I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather have a bit of the background or the forefront as well. Oh, yeah, okay. So it's up to you. It depends on your style, your preference, what you like to do. Um, this is nice, but I feel the focus should be on the cheetah, and unlike a very aesthetic shot, this is more of a comical nature of the cheetah's expression. So I think you can frame it like I would prefer to frame it like this. There's a clean background, it's less distracting. You can see every detail. Finally, we go to this photograph of the jackal, which was also taken in the Masai Mara. We can leave it as it is, but I just feel that we can use a more portrait type of crop just to bring out facial expressions and the eyes of the jackal. So basically, we leave the head as the focal point in the top half of the frame. The background is nicely blurred out, so there's no distractions. Voila. So this is how I would go about the crop, and so that ends our session on cropping. We would go through some of the editing of the same images, the post-processing of some of the same images in our next episode. And I hope that you learned something. Please leave a comment on the comments box, and please inbox me if you have any personal questions. I'm always here to help. And I hope you enjoy this session. And this is Rajiv signing out from Wildlife Exposure. And see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.